As Chris said, my name is Matthew Garinger, if you do not know me. This is my 5th year at Ridgehaven. My first 4 years at Ridgehaven were as a camper. I spent 2 years in the junior high camp and 2 years as a senior high camper. I was able to have both Joel Williamson and Timmy Miller as my counselors. I was never able to have my brother, but I was able to work with him this summer as my first year as a CSI. I was convinced to be a CSI by both Devin, Catherine, and a little bit of Tim last year when I was a camper. Both Catherine and Devin were CSI, and then Tim decided he was going to be a CSI, so then around a week or two later, after camp, I decided I was going to work there. For those of you who do not know what a CSI is, it stands for like Camp Service Intern, and basically we do everything that's behind the scenes at Ridgehaven. And that's working in the kitchen, doing housekeeping, maintenance, pretty much everything that you can think of that helps keep the camp running. A CSI probably doesn't. Probably the number one job that all CSI do is working in the kitchen. I've heard stories of 12-hour kitchen shifts. I was never had the privilege to experience that. Thankfully. Working at Ridgehaven, one of the first meetings we had as a staff, Wallace Anderson, the camp's executive officer, talked about how we are all living in a community together. And that's what I'm going to talk about most this year, just the community and the fellowship I was able to experience. And it was, probably one of the first times that on a daily basis I was in constant fellowship with other Christians. And even with things like working in the kitchen, when you're washing dishes with someone, or you're making a sandwich next to someone, you're talking with that person, you're learning more about them. Some of my closer relationships were built working alongside them in the kitchen and housekeeping. When you're cleaning up rooms, when you're making beds or other things. Some more specific times where I would look back at my time at Ridgehaven and just think about it, this was a really cool time, was one weekend the entire staff camped at a mountain called Black Balsam. And we literally camped on top of the mountain, and it was freezing. And I was not in the tent. I was next to Devin and Tim, this other guy named Nathan, and we all were in sleeping bags together, and we all got pretty close that night. So. Some other times of fellowships were just conversation with my roommates. My roommates were these two people named Joseph Tate and Caleb. Shows how much I know him, I forgot Caleb's last name. Caleb McKillop, there we go. And then Hunter, around a little more than halfway through the summer, joined us. He stayed for the half summer. It was really cool to have Hunter living with us. Just the conversations I would have with him, usually they would last till 1, 2 a.m. at night. Some of them were arguments, some of them were debates, but other times we were just talking about everything, and it was really cool. I have this outline here of my speech, and this part is just called The Hike. This hike, it was with 2 other counselors. Their names were Andrew Breed and Stephen McCarahan. At Ridgehaven, there's a bunch of trails that sometimes they take campers on. The biggest of these trails is called the Continental Divide Trail. It's 4 miles long, and it's literally in the wilderness. They say it's 6 miles long. It's literally in the wilderness of the mountains. And as me, Stephen, and Breed were walking up to it, we all decided that we should do it barefoot and shirtless. I'm sure Catherine would have loved to have been there to watch us, but she was not able to. She's telling me to shut up right now. And this hike lasted around 3 to 4 hours, and it was very grueling, and it was very hard. But this time, just the 3 of us, and these guys are both like 5, 6 years older than me, really bonded. And that was just one of the things that people do at Ridgehaven. We just bond. And I was with these people at Ridgehaven for 2 months, and I'm closer to them than I am with my school friends who I've been with for 5 years. And it's just, I really realize now that I can only grow closer with other Christians, and Ridgehaven helped teach me that. And then, all these times of fellowship I've been talking about, they all usually happen in good times, but they also happen in bad. I'm sure many of you heard about the passing of David Taft, who was a counselor who I was not able to meet personally, but of all the stories I've heard about him, he seemed like a really awesome and God-fearing person. And I remember that night just being completely drained, you know, with seeing all these people just breaking down in front of me. And then, you know, being with these people, fellowshipping with these people, trying to comfort them. I remember, you know, a specific experience. I mean, I was the person to tell Devin about his death. You know, I was in the room with Catherine Smith after she heard about it. I mean, just all these real experiences happening. And, you know, it was hard. It really was. And I remember that night, the whole campus was just in a state of shock. You know, but God did help us. And, you know, got us through those hard days. You know, when all we had to do, when all we wanted to do was just stop and take a break, but we couldn't. You know, He helped us carry on. You know, I mean, those last 4 days I was at Bridgehaven, I probably got a combined 19 hours of sleep, because I mean, I was just constantly going, just trying to, you know, taking the place of others who you know, may have had to leave because of David's death. You know, I just constantly just going, and God helped me through it. You know, we helped a lot. We helped Hunter, who had to take over for a counselor who had to leave. You know, so just God really, especially that last week, helped. You know, that last week was also just very emotional for everyone. You know, for me, it was the last week. I was happy to go. You know, I was ready to leave, but also, I mean, I wasn't. You know, I was with all my friends, all these very close friends that I made. And then when David's death hit, I mean, it was just, no one would have been able to do anything right if it was outside of God's help. After people have a long trip, the number one question people ask them is, "Oh, how was it?" You know, you can't really explain that to them without talking about it for a really long time. So, you know, basically, I've just told people it was life-changing and it was amazing. And it was. I loved working at Bridgehaven. It wasn't easy. You know, I'm not going to stand up here and say, you know, Bridgehaven was really easy. It was a hard job. But thankfully, you know, through God's help, I was able to do my job. And I think I did it well. And, you know, I would like to thank all the people who are here that may have supported me, whether through prayer or through maybe giving me money to work there. And I thank every single one for that. And I do plan on going back next year.